So we are talking about a vow-based life. A vow-based life. Um, it is so different than the ordinary motivation. Because once life is connected to a deeper vow, energy changes completely. And the devotion is not superstition. It is when consciousness opens to the infinite and resonates. It will end with resonating with a system of vows. Because blind superstition is unconscious, maybe fear-based, mechanical, but what this passage describes is something different. It describes a conscious opening of life toward a greater direction. And when consciousness aligns deeply with a higher vow, enormous coherence appears internally. Fragmentation decreases, meaning increases, and energy becomes gathered instead of scattered. Then comes another line, another message that I think is incredibly important from Xuemo's lesson. Devotion means allowing the finite self to give way to infinite awareness. This sentence is almost the core of the entire class because the small self always wants control. It wants certainty, comfort, recognition, security, but awareness itself is larger than egoic control. And perhaps real spiritual growth begins when life slowly stops revolving entirely around egoic preference, not because individuality is destroyed, but because awareness becomes more important than egoic reaction. Finally, the passage says devotion can be trained. I think this is very important because devotion is not like emotion. They never change. The real devotion is also discipline, training attention, training sincerity, training stability, training awareness, training the ability to repeatedly return to a higher direction despite emotional fluctuation. And perhaps this is why the passage says individual consciousness easily becomes fragmented. Because without a deeper center, modern life naturally scatters human attention in 1,000 directions. But once a person truly connects to a deeper tradition, truth, or vow, life slowly regains coherence. And maybe that is what many people today are actually searching for beneath all the noise. Not merely stimulation, not merely success, but a deeper sense powerful enough to unify life like itself. Hi, Deja. Sorry, I don't know much about the history. We are here mainly about Xuemo mindology. So modern people feel internally, very easy to feel internally fragmented, right? Hi to the new ones here. Please subscribe our channel. Our page is mainly about inner strength, self-growth, inner peace in this chaotic world. So thank you for coming by, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you. We are mainly about the human warmth and the spirituality found in works by the Chinese writer Mr. Xuemo. So I'm sharing the contents that just taught this morning, and after lunch I'm doing a live stream. I'm sharing you with Xuemo's fresh teaching this morning. So Xuemo says an individual life easily becomes fragmented, but when you are connected to its tradition, humanity, history, sentient beings, and the future, you will get the unexhausted power. Many people today feel psychologically isolated, disconnected, cut off from tradition, cut off from deep meaning, cut off from history, and even cut off from future direction. Life becomes reduced to a temporary personal survival. Work, consumption, entertainment, emotional fluctuation. Hi, my Rapid. English. Hello. Hi, Mahesh. Welcome. If you're new here, please subscribe to our channel. So entertainment, emotional fluctuation, and endless short-term stimulation. So consciousness naturally becomes fragmented because human beings were never meant to live only for isolated personal desire. A person needs connection to something larger. So we can connect to something larger than the ego, than your individual emotion. That is tradition, that is culture, that is humanity, sentient beings, history, future generations, truth, meaning. And without that, life becomes psychologically weightless. And then there is also a sentence very powerful. Actually, it is very, very important for me myself for the lesson taught this morning. So it is not that I myself am merely striving. It is that I am carrying a mission greater than myself. This changes the entire psychology of action. Because when life revolves only around personal gain, motivation becomes fragile. Emotion changes and motivation disappears. Difficulty appears and people retreat. External validation weakens and the direction becomes unclear. But when a person feels connected to something greater than the ego, endurance changes completely. Because now life is no longer merely for me. And perhaps this is one reason why many people throughout history could devote themselves to an extraordinary path. Not because life became easy, but because meaning became larger than suffering. Then the passage says very directly, devotion is the root of vow power. I think this sentence is extremely important because many people want strength without establishing a deeper center. They want discipline without meaning, persistence without direction, endurance without inner purpose. But vow power cannot emerge from emptiness. Real vow power grows from deep conviction, from alignment, from devotion to something higher than temporary emotion. And then comes another line. When there is a great vow in the heart, the entire field of life changes. I think many people can actually feel this intuitively. Some people walk into a room carrying scattered energy, confused, weak, fragmented, emotionally unstable, but some people carry another kind of presence. Not necessarily loud, not emotionally dramatic, but stable, focused, grounded, because their life has direction internally. And when a person truly establishes a great vow, their energy structure changes. Attention gathers, emotions stabilizes, fear weakens, endurance increases, and life gradually becomes more coherent. Then the passage says something else very profound. From passively accepting fate to actively undertaking a mission. I think this sentence describes a major turning point in consciousness. Most people live reactively. Circumstances happen, emotions react, life pushes them somewhere, and spend years merely responding unconsciously to life. But a mission-based life is different, right? Now a person begins actively choosing direction, actively carrying responsibility, actively aligning life with something meaningful. This changes human psychology completely because life is no longer something merely happening to you. You begin consciously participating in it. And then comes another very powerful sentence. When you undertake a mission, you also inherit all the strength contained within that mission. I think this is one of the deepest truths about human beings. A person's strength often depends on what they are connected to internally. If consciousness is connected only to small self-interest, energy remains small and unstable. But when consciousness connects to something larger than the self, enormous energy can emerge. Not because the human ego becomes larger, but because life stops revolving around the ego entirely. And perhaps this is why, throughout history, the people who changed civilization most deeply were usually connected to something greater than personal comfort, a deeper truth, a larger vow, a mission, or a vision for humanity beyond themselves alone. Hi, Red Venom. Hello. Welcome. Long time no see. So, what does it really mean to let it, the finished self, give way to infinite awareness? I think this is actually one of the deepest questions in the cultivation, because almost everything in ordinary human life is centered around the finished self. My emotions, my image, my preferences, my success, my pain, and the ego consciously, continuously places itself as the center of reality. And because of that, consciousness becomes narrow, reactive, defensive, anxious, and everything becomes personal. A comment becomes an attack, failure becomes identity collapse, and rejection becomes unbearable. Sorry, everything becomes personal. A comment becomes an attack. Failure becomes identity collapse, and rejection becomes unbearable suffering. Why? Because the finished self is fragile by nature. It depends heavily on conditions, validation, security, attachment, control. And the more consciousness is trapped inside that small self, the more unstable life becomes. So what does it mean to let awareness become greater than the feeling itself? It does not mean destroying individuality mechanically. It does not mean becoming emotionally numb, and it certainly does not mean pretending to have no human emotions. It means something subtler and deeper. Awareness gradually stops being completely controlled by egoic reaction. For example, before anger appears and immediately becomes your whole reality. Now anger may still appear, but awareness can observe it. Before fear completely controlled behavior, now fear may still arise, but something deeper remains stable underneath. Before praise and criticism constantly change your sense of self-worth, now awareness becomes less dependent on external evaluation. This is already the beginning of the shift. The finished self is still there, but it is no longer sitting on the throne. Awareness itself becomes more central, and I think this is why many wisdom traditions talk about spaciousness. Because awareness is naturally spacious. Thoughts move through it, emotions move through it, fear moves through it, joy moves through it. Awareness itself is larger than all of them. So if you have anything you want to say, leave your message here. So it is just like the sky and clouds. Clouds appear, storms appear, but the sky itself remains vast. The problem is that most people mistake the clouds for their entire identity. So the moment sadness appears, they believe I am sadness. Fear appears, and they become fear itself. Attachment appears, and consciousness completely collapses into attachment. But deeper awareness changes this relationship. You begin realizing the clouds are not the whole sky, the emotion is not the entirety of consciousness. Interesting. Thank you. So you're very interested in this kind of topic. I'm sharing the contents from the lesson this morning, and I'm sharing here in the after lunch. So emotion is not the entirety of consciousness. The finite self is not the deepest layer of being. And maybe this is why true spiritual growth often feels like both freedom and humility at the same time. Freedom because you becomes less trapped by the ego. Humility because you realize life is far greater than the personal self. And perhaps this is the deeper meaning of letting the finite self give way to infinite awareness, not destroying the human self violently, but slowly allowing awareness, truth, compassion, and a greater consciousness to become more central than egoic reaction. And over time, this changes the entire structure of life. So if you're interested in this kind of topic, you can subscribe to our channel and come to our live stream. We are doing the live stream at different times every day. And if you have anything you want to talk, and if you have any questions, you can leave your message here. Okay, next topic. Xuemo's books are many of Xuemo's books are available on Amazon. You can search for Xuemo, Xuemo, Xuemo. So, many people place their hope for life in something external, a God outside themselves, fate, luck, or forces they believe will have them, save them. But what we are exploring here is something different. Through the writings of the Chinese author Xu Mo, the focus is not on worshipping an external God, but on awakening the power within. In Chinese culture, there is a saying, my destiny is determined by me, not by heaven. This is not arrogance, it is responsibility. It means realizing that your life does not truly belong to anyone else. And that real change begins when the heart returns to itself. When your heart belongs to you, you stop waiting to be saved, and you begin to live consciously. Hi, Cheyenne. Hello, welcome. Welcome to our channel. Okay. So very happy day, which is happy day. And I just finished sharing the lessons just taught in the morning. And so perhaps the real path of life is not becoming a more successful self-ego, not endlessly polishing identity, image, and self-importance, but gradually learning how to let consciousness become wider than the ego itself, to let awareness become stronger than emotional reaction, to let truth become more important than temporary comfort, to let a greater direction become more important than personal gain and loss. And maybe this is why inner cultivation is not escape from life, because life itself becomes the training ground. Relationships, failure, loneliness, responsibility, pressure, attachment, everything becomes part of awakening awareness. And perhaps real maturity is when a person slowly stops asking, how can life satisfy me? And begins asking, how can this life become aligned with truth? How can this life serve something greater than fear and ego? How can awareness remain present no matter what clouds pass through the sky? And maybe from that moment, life truly begins changing from the root. So, thank you for being here. And thank you for listening together, reflecting together, exploring these questions together. No matter where you are in the world right now, I hope the sharing brought you even a little more clarity, stillness, and inner space. And remember, the sky is always larger than the clouds passing through it. So see you in the next live stream.